I sat by the window of the Morning Roast Cafe, my fingers locked tightly in my lap, my stomach growling louder with each plate of hot food that passed me by. The smell of butter, bacon, and fresh ground coffee was too much for any normal person to handle, let alone a hungry 17-year-old with only $20 to his name. I stared at the menu, not because I was about to order anything, I couldn't. Every cent I had was tucked away in the inside pocket of my worn-out jacket. I'd been saving for weeks, skipping snacks at school, walking home instead of taking the bus, and turning down every small temptation, all so I could buy something special for my mom's birthday. She worked here. The Morning Roast. Not the nicest place in the city, but it paid. My mom, Denise, had been a dishwasher at this cafe for over a year. She never complained, not once. Even when her hands were raw from soap and heat, or when her feet ached from standing too long, she kept going. She said it was honest work. I believed her. The cafe buzzed with low chatter and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. I sat there waiting for her shift to end, thinking how proud she'd be when I surprised her tomorrow with the gift I had in mind. I didn't know what exactly I'd buy, maybe a necklace or something nice she could wear on her day off. But it had to be special. She deserved that much. That's when it happened. The piece of the cafe shattered like glass. You think I'm stupid? You think you can just eat and walk out? A loud voice bellowed from across the room. Heads turned, including mine. Standing near the counter was Greg Stenson, the owner of the cafe, a short, red-faced man with a permanent scowl. He was pointing an accusatory finger at an elderly couple seated near the window. I blinked. The couple didn't look like troublemakers. If anything, they looked like they'd walked out of a Sunday church service. The man, silver-haired and neatly dressed in a brown wool coat, was nervously patting his jacket pockets. His wife clutched her purse, visibly shaken. I swear, the man said, his voice cracking, I had it when we came in. My wallet, it must have fallen out. Please, I'll come back in. I've heard it all before, Stenson snapped, his voice cutting through the room. You're just like the others. You think I'm running a charity here? The room fell uncomfortably quiet. No one moved. No one said a word. It was like everyone decided to pretend it wasn't happening. I sat frozen in my seat. We can work it off, the woman said softly, her voice almost a whisper. Please. Let us help in the kitchen or something. Stenson laughed bitterly, a harsh, ugly sound. You. Work? I don't need senior citizens in my kitchen. I need my money. You've got 5 minutes before I call the cops. That did it. I stood up, my legs shaky. I don't know why I did it. I didn't have a plan. But something about the way that man stood there, yelling at them like they were trash, like they meant nothing, it burned in my chest. I walked toward them. My palms were sweating. Stenson turned, scowling at me like I was a cockroach crawling into his precious cafe. What now? He barked. What do you want, kid? You friends with these scammers? Or did you steal their wallet, huh? My mouth went dry. I reached into my jacket pocket. My fingers brushed against the soft edges of the envelope I'd stuffed with the only money I had. My mom's gift. Weeks of sacrifice. I pulled it out and placed it silently on the table in front of him. I'll pay for them, I said. The words didn't even sound like mine. Stenson stared at the cash. Then he grabbed it, counted it quickly, and walked away without another word. The old couple turned to me with wide, astonished eyes. The woman's lips trembled. Thank you, she whispered. The man reached into his coat and pulled out a small notepad. Let us give you our address. Please. If you ever need anything. I nodded numbly and took the torn slip of paper with shaky hands. They walked out into the cold, their heads low, their hands held tightly together. I returned to my table and sat down, my chest hollow. The envelope was gone. So was my plan. My mom's birthday was tomorrow. And I had nothing to give her. I sat there, slouched in my seat, feeling smaller than ever. The sound of laughter, silverware clinking, and distant jazz music filled the room again, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just handed over the last piece of something I'd been working toward for weeks. People went back to sipping their coffee and scrolling their phones. But inside, something felt broken. My mom still hadn't come out from the back. I didn't want her to see me like this, eyes glassy, chest tight. I wanted to tell her I'd gotten her something beautiful, something shiny, wrapped in ribbon. But that was gone now. And for what? For a couple of strangers I didn't even know. I stared at the floor. My fingers fiddled with my keychain, just some keys and a small metal ring that used to belong to my dad. It was the only thing of his I had left. Just a scratched-up ring from his high school days, but I carried it everywhere. He died when I was 5. And ever since, I felt like that ring held some kind of invisible line between me and the man I barely remembered. I guess I was too lost in my head, because I dropped it. It clinked on the floor, rolled once, then disappeared under the booth couch. Great, I muttered under my breath and got down on my knees. The space under that couch was dusty, filled with crumbs, a straw wrapper, and what looked like someone's lost button. I reached in further. Then, something caught my eye. It was black. Rectangular. A wallet. I squinted. Wait, no way, I whispered. I pulled it out, slowly, like it might disappear. It was worn but intact. When I opened it, the first thing I saw wasn't cash, it was a photo, tucked into the clear pocket. I gasped. It was them. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, the elderly couple I had just helped. Except in the photo, they looked younger. He had more hair, she had a brighter smile, but it was definitely them. I sat back on my heels, heart racing. It was their wallet. The man hadn't lied. He really did lose it. And now I had it. It was right here, inches away from where they had been sitting. I jumped up so fast I nearly knocked my chair over. I shoved the wallet into my pocket and ran toward the door, ignoring the sharp glance from one of the waitresses. Outside, the sun had already dipped below the skyline, casting long purple shadows over the sidewalks. I looked left, then right. No sign of them. The street was mostly empty now, just a few people walking their dogs or heading home from work. I ran down the block. Nothing. I turned the corner and kept going, hoping, praying that I might spot them, maybe they had just slowed down or stopped at a bus stop. But every step I took led me further into the cold. They were gone. I stopped near an alley and bent over, trying to catch my breath. My jacket clung to my sweaty back. The wallet burned in my pocket. Come on, I muttered to myself. They can't have gone far. That's when I heard it, a sharp voice behind me. Hey! You! Stop right there. I turned and saw 2 police officers walking quickly toward me, one of them already resting a hand near his holster. What's your problem? Why are you running around? The taller one asked. He had dark eyebrows and a tense jawline. His name badge read Delgado. I held up my hands instinctively. I was looking for someone. I found a wallet in a cafe and I was just trying to find the people who lost it. The second officer stepped forward, skeptical. A wallet, huh? Let's see it. I reached into my pocket slowly and handed it over. They flipped it open, saw the photo. Where exactly did you find this? Officer Delgado asked. In the cafe, I said. Under the booth. I recognized the people. They were just there, the owner yelled at them. Said they couldn't pay. I paid for their meal. Both officers looked at each other. I could feel it, the doubt in their eyes. The quiet suspicion. I wasn't just a kid anymore. I was a black kid, running through the street at night, holding a wallet that didn't belong to me. "We'll need to confirm that story," Delgado said. "You got ID?" I handed him my school ID. He jotted something down in a small notepad. "Come on," he said. "Let's go talk to the cafe owner." We walked back in silence. My legs felt heavier with each step. Back inside the cafe, Stenson was still at the counter, pretending he didn't see us walk in. "Sir," Delgado called out, "did you have an incident earlier with a couple who couldn't pay?" Stenson grunted. "Yeah. Old guy and his wife. Said they lost their wallet. This kid paid for them. Don't know why." Delgado nodded and looked back at me. "All right. That checks out. We'll hold on to the wallet. If they come back looking for it, we'll return it." I opened my mouth. "But, I could return it myself. I know where they." "We'll handle it," the second officer said, cutting me off. They took down my name and number and left without another word. I stood in the middle of the cafe, the air thick with everything I didn't say. I had done the right thing. I knew I had. But still, it didn't feel right. When my mom finally came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, I couldn't even look her in the eye. She smiled like she always did when she saw me, tired but happy. But I couldn't smile back. We didn't say much on the way home. My mom walked beside me in her heavy jacket, arms tucked in, her pace slower than usual. The street lamps flickered above us, casting our shadows across the sidewalk like long, tired ghosts. She kept glancing at me out of the corner of her eye. I knew she felt it, the storm I was holding inside. When we reached the apartment, I unlocked the door in silence. The place was dark, still cold from the morning. We didn't have the best heating system, some nights we had to sleep in our jackets. But this was home. A small two-bedroom on the third floor, cracked tiles in the bathroom, peeling paint in the hallway, but it was ours. "Go wash up," she said softly. "I'll warm something up." I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, keys still in hand, my throat tightening. She looked at me again. This time she didn't speak. She didn't need to. I could feel the pressure building in my chest, and it finally cracked. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said. My voice came out rough, uneven. "I had something planned. For your birthday tomorrow. I was saving up. Every penny. Every dollar. I was gonna get you something nice." She didn't say anything. Just looked at me with those eyes of hers, soft, but deep like wells. But today, at the cafe, there was this old couple. They couldn't pay. People were staring. The owner was yelling. And I shook my head. I gave it all away. Every bit of it. I couldn't let them be humiliated like that. I was trembling now. My voice cracked again. I didn't even think. I just did it. And now, I got nothing for you. I'm sorry. She walked over to me slowly. Placed her hand on my cheek. And then she smiled. Not the tired smile she wore at the end of a shift. Not the polite smile she gave to strangers. But the kind of smile I hadn't seen in a long time. The kind that came from somewhere deep, where love lived, where pride lived. "Malik," she said gently. "You are the best present I've ever had." I swallowed hard. "But, I wanted to give you something real. Something you could touch. Something that said thank you." She brushed my cheek with her thumb. "You did. You gave something real to someone who needed it. And that's worth more than jewelry or perfume. You showed the kind of man you're becoming. And if your daddy was here, he'd be proud. I know I am." I couldn't hold it anymore. I hugged her tight. She held me close, like she did when I was little, when I used to have nightmares and crawl into her bed in the middle of the night. That night we didn't eat much. We just sat at the little table in the kitchen and talked. About nothing and everything. The next morning, something rare happened. She had the day off. That almost never happened. She said she swapped with someone, wanted to spend the day with me, her birthday gift to herself, she joked. We spent the morning watching old movies on the couch, wrapped in blankets, sipping instant cocoa. It wasn't glamorous. But it was peaceful. For once, time didn't feel like it was running away from us. We were laughing about something silly when there was a knock at the door. We both froze. No one ever visited us. Not without calling first. I looked at her. She looked at me. Then she stood up and walked slowly to the door. From the kitchen, I heard voices. At first muffled. Then clearer. I think you have the wrong apartment, she said. A pause. Actually, ma'am, we believe this is exactly the right one. I got up and walked toward the front door, heart pounding. And there they were. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet. Standing in our hallway. Clean, elegant, smiling. Malik, Mrs. Bennet said, beaming. We finally found you. My jaw dropped. How did you? The officers brought the wallet to us, Mr. Bennet explained. Your name was on the incident report. We asked around. Took a few calls, but we couldn't let your kindness go unanswered. My mom stepped back, still trying to piece everything together. I turned to her. These are the people I told you about. The ones from the cafe. We invited them in. They stepped carefully into our apartment, looking around. I suddenly became aware of everything, the peeling paint, the second-hand furniture, the chipped floor tiles. But they didn't seem to notice. Or maybe they did, but didn't care. Mr. Bennet looked at me long and steady. You did something yesterday that most people wouldn't. You stood up when no one else did. You gave without knowing if you'd ever get anything back. And that says a lot about who you are. I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened again. And because of that, he continued, we'd like to offer you something. Something real. I blinked. What do you mean? We're not just an old married couple, Mrs. Bennet said, smiling. My husband runs a scholarship foundation. And we want to give you a full ride. University. Tuition. Housing. Everything. I couldn't breathe. We believe in investing in people with heart, Mr. Bennet said. And your heart, it's gold, son. I heard a sound behind me. My mom. She was crying. Hands covering her mouth. Mrs. Bennet turned to her. You raised a good man, she said. And we'd like to help you too. If you're open to it. My mom wiped her tears. Help me how? We have a position at our company. Something far better than washing dishes. Something where your hands won't be raw by the end of the day. And, we'd like to offer it to you. My mom looked at me. Then back at them. Yes, she said, her voice trembling. Yes. We invited them to sit. We didn't have much to offer. But what we had, we shared. And in that moment, our small kitchen felt like the biggest, warmest place in the world. That night, sleep never came. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, my blanket pulled up to my chest, heart racing even though the room was still. My mom was already asleep in the next room, I could hear her soft breathing through the wall, deeper than usual. The kind of sleep you only get when a mountain has finally been lifted off your shoulders. I, on the other hand, felt like I was carrying something heavier than I ever had before. They said I was getting a full ride. A real chance at college. A future. I should have been over the moon. But instead, I was afraid. Because in my head, all I could think about was one question. Do I even deserve this? What if they made a mistake? What if I wasn't as good as they thought? What if I failed? The morning light crept in through the blinds, striping the wall with orange and gray. I hadn't moved. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Mr. Bennett. He wanted to meet that afternoon, take me on a tour of the university they were offering. I replied yes, even though my fingers shook. By 2 p.m., I was standing in front of a campus that looked like something from a movie. Towering brick buildings, manicured lawns, students walking by with laptops and coffees, laughing and arguing about things I barely understood. Mr. Bennett stood beside me in a crisp gray coat. "This," he said, waving his hand, "could be your new beginning." I nodded slowly, trying to imagine myself there. Me. Malik Carter. The dishwasher's kid from apartment 3B. "Can I be honest with you?" I asked. He looked at me gently. "Always." "I'm scared," I admitted. "What if I don't belong here?" He smiled softly. "Malik, let me tell you something. The world will always try to make people like us feel like outsiders. But you don't need anyone's permission to belong. You already do. You earned this. Not because of a wallet. Not because of a moment. But because of who you are when no one's watching." I swallowed hard. "But what if I mess it all up?" "You will," he said. That caught me off guard. "You'll mess up. Everyone does. But that's not what defines you. What matters is if you keep going. If you keep choosing to do the right thing even when it's hard. And if you keep that heart of yours intact." I took a deep breath. For the first time. I believed him. Later that night, I walked my mom to her first day at her new job. She was nervous too, but she held her head high. Dressed in business casual, with a second-hand purse and polished shoes, she looked like a woman reborn. "Think they'll like me?" she asked with a small laugh. I smiled. "They'll love you. Think I'll remember how to work an office printer? Just don't ask me. I've only ever fought with them." We both laughed. That moment, just walking beside her, both of us stepping into something new, felt sacred. Like the world had finally tilted in our favor. Weeks passed. The world didn't explode with fireworks. There were no flashing signs or fairy tale music. But things started changing, quietly, steadily. I got my student ID. Signed up for classes. Met my academic advisor. Picked up my books from the store, still shocked at how heavy they were, and how expensive. The Bennetts paid for everything. No questions asked. My mom settled into her job. She had her own desk, her own computer. She came home every day with stories about spreadsheets and office drama and how proud she was that no one had to tell her twice how to log in. Our apartment hadn't changed, the paint still peeled, the pipes still moaned in the winter. But inside those walls, we felt different. More alive. One evening, as I was helping her sort out mail, she looked at me with that same soft pride I'd seen the night after I told her about the wallet. "You remember when I said you were my best gift?" she asked. I nodded. "Well. I think God gave me 2 gifts that day. You. And that couple finding you when they did." I thought about that. How everything had changed from one small choice. From one moment when I could have looked away, and didn't. It scared me a little. How powerful one decision could be. That weekend, I went back to the morning roast. Not to sit. Not to watch food pass me by. But to return. I walked through the door and saw Greg Stenson behind the counter, barking orders like always. He looked up and gave me a half nod. "You here to visit your mom?" he asked, wiping his hands on his apron. "She doesn't work here anymore," I said. "You know that." He shrugged. "Shame. She was a good worker. Reliable." "She was more than that," I said. "You just never looked close enough." He raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I walked to the booth where it all started, the one by the window, where my hunger had nearly won out over my patience. I sat down. This time, I ordered something. A small breakfast, eggs, toast, and coffee. And when the waiter asked if I wanted anything else, I smiled. No, I said. This is perfect. I sat there for an hour. Watching people. Thinking. And when I left a 20 on the table. Because sometimes, you don't just pay for the food. Sometimes, you pay it forward.